Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. So, today we're going to be talking about how astrology and music are innately the same, about how that which happens in music happens in literally the same way in astrology, and about how studying one led me to another. And though I'd introduced this in a previous episode about how they are the same, today I'd like to start demonstrating it with uh, a few drawings and live demonstrations about how these things actually occur. Now, why are astrology and music the same in the first place? The thing is, what we are looking at is when you're looking at music composition, you are looking at musical notes which you're considering as frequencies within a man-made realm, because there's sounds everywhere. But in music, we use frequencies or pitches which are within the framework of 12 musical tones used in Western music. Now, all of them align at a certain frequency, which means that all of them are separated from each other as well with an exact frequency and with an exact equation. Now, when we start to plot astrology on our axis of the universe or from our standpoint on the universe, that is your current latitude and longitude on the planet, wherever you are, that is from where you are dealing with astrology. So when you start plotting the sky above you start to look at it in a very similar fashion. Just like sound is everywhere, but we end up choosing frequencies which can work in harmony with each other so that we can discern it, create something out of it, and enjoy it as music. Astrology is quite similar in that fashion that you've got your 12. I would again say man-made because there's a lot more constellations out there, but 12 chosen constellations which you pick up, which are readily seen to the naked eye from our planet Earth, a point of reference, and they all intervene and intermingle with each other by divisions of certain frequencies, or what you would call as degrees, and are all set apart and brought together by similar equations. Now, how all this started to make sense is that me coming from a musical background, that's my education. Uh, when I was in my spiritual quests, when I was deep into all of that, trying to find the meaning of life, trying to find what it's all about, trying to find out why we are here, trying to find out what's my true purpose on this planet, whatever, why have I been put here? Like everything was not just a mystery; it was a haunting call which had to be answered, or I couldn't continue with my next day. It was something extremely urgent. So the spiritual quests that followed, which I like to get in on a different video probably, uh, led me to amazing discoveries, led me to profound realizations about my higher dimensions that are within me and within everybody around us. And when I wished to share that with the world around me, because that was how I could communicate with the world around me of what I had just found, of what I had just discovered. astrology as a science or as a equation for me presented itself in a way that the way that I see and perceive myself in the higher dimensions, I could perceive and relate to other human beings uh, in a similar fashion, in a fashion which includes their physical realities, includes their emotional realities, includes their mental states, and also goes deeper than that and includes the realms of their consciousness. Now, this is the level at which I wanted to commune with people around me because that is the level at which I was kind of vibrating, and I wanted to form deep bonds with people around me and whoever I came in contact with. So, astrology slowly surfaced as a way of communicating in a reliable way all the information and all the intuition that I had gathered, but with keeping it down to not just this is my perspective about what I think you are going through, but with a more, how you would call it, as a right brain approach of having mathematics and geometry laid out in front of the person I'm speaking with. So it's discernible for the mind of the person who I'm speaking with or communicating with, communing with. So that's kind of a little bit of backstory. Now, when we actually start to get into it, I would like to do it in a very traditional way. That is, pull out music first, explain just the basics of how it's laid out, pull out astrology, explain the basics of how it's laid out, then start to show the very simple lines which kind of tend to connect them, and about how, if you could actually uh, wrap your head around this system, you could very well solve some of your life's problems yourself or with the help of someone. But yeah, you could end up solving it much faster because you could get the bigger picture much faster, much more easier. And in fact, that is how I personally solve a lot of very complex equations within my astrology chart, which I would have otherwise, if I didn't understand it in a deeper level, would have just been going round and round in circles, facing the same issues again and again and again. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. So, I'll share my screen and get you going with a little bit of art, for example, our good old musical notes. Now, let's answer myself. Okay, I guess I'm having some, what would you call it, as technical issues. Is it working? Just give me a sec. There you go. That's yeah, that's fine. So if any of you are remotely familiar, that's how your musical notes look. And that's how they kind of get laid out on your keyboard in succession. So you start from C, going all the way up till D, C, C sharp, D sharp, and so on and so forth. And as they go up horizontally here on the keyboard. So all the white keys that you see are just regular notes. C, D, E, F, G, and so on. While all the black ones are the ones which have the name sharp. Now, it's irrelevant when we compare this with astrology because that doesn't make much of a relation. But just so you don't get confused with the white and the black, I just laid that down. And that is kind of how they look. All the 12 notes. Why is it 12? It's 7 white plus 5 black. 7 plus 5 is 12. So that's how we have the 12 notes of music going on. And eventually they get laid out in something like this, what you would call as a musical circle of all the notes. You could, here you have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, and B. Those are our 12 musical notes, and they're all laid down on a circle. Now, we use that so that we study harmony and other concepts of music in this fashion. Now, let me pull out the same thing with astrology. When you're looking at astrology, I'm sure you're probably familiar with, or at least might have seen, all the signs laid out in this fashion for you. Starting from good old Aries, going on to Taurus, to Gemini, to Cancer, to Leo, going all the way up to Pisces. Those are the 12 astrological signs that we have. And if you are to find any kind of correlation, the best way to see them is as if they're laid down on a clock. That is from 1 to 12. It's pretty much the same. Astrology, music, and the clock. Now, another thing that this kind of does is that you start to see them as 360 degrees because it's a circle, right? And when you divide them by the 12 that you have here, you're getting equal so-called astrological houses of 30 degrees each. So each house occupies 30 degrees in the sky. Now here is your point of reference. That's you at the center of the, your reference point, which is planet Earth. And that's the sky that you map out of the 12 constellations that you see around you. So we set them apart at 30 degrees and we break them down in this fashion, like a simple pie diagram. The same thing is done in music as well, is that they get broken down into these 12 and they surface as the 12 notes of music. Now, when you start to see this, you start to realize that okay, there's my astrological signs and stuff. You start to realize one thing, especially when you get into a little bit of detail in either of them, is that music happens when you have more than one note happening at a time, right? I mean, you can create music with a single note as well, but for the sake of this communication and this conversation, let's say that music is an interrelation of a succession of notes that happen. So when notes succeed each other or when they're played together, they have a interrelation between each other. And this interrelation creates a certain angle between them. And as we had laid them out on the chart, they're all 30 degrees apart from each other. So if you played C and then you played E after that, which is a major third, you would have a certain interrelation between them. And that interrelation, I tend to calculate in degrees because that's how it's done in astrology. So I'll pull that out for you. Now, if you are to play, there you go. If you are to play Now, if you are to play this C that we have here, and then you are to play E, which is out here. Yeah. So now, how many houses? Now I'm going to speak with both together. How many houses or how many notes am I skipping? Doing 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? And as we spoke about in astrology, let's do the same here as well. We do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? So as we spoke about in astrology, the same in music, that if you are skipping 4 houses, or each house is 30 degrees, right? Each house is 30 degrees. If you are skipping 30 into 4, that's 120 degrees. So any musical note or any astrological sign which is 4 houses apart or 4 notes apart is ideally going to give you a very harmonic sound or a harmonious sound. If any of you are familiar with a bit of music theory, you would know that the major chord or the major third in the major chord, that is the difference between C going into E, is one of the most harmonious sounds that one can have. It creates happiness, creates lightness, creates joy, and is used in most simple, or I would say uncomplicated tunes, because it creates a mood which is very akin to harmony. If you are to come into astrology here, when I draw the same lines, I am able to meet Sagittarius with Leo. Now, if you're familiar with a bit about their modality and their qualities, Sagittarius and Leo are both fire signs. Now, any form of relation that happens in between these two houses is going to be extremely harmonious. That means any aspect that happens between them is going to be a free flow of energy. There's going to be little to no obstructions. So, when you pull out a traditional astrological chart, which I'm going to do now, I'm going to just pull out my own birth chart. There you go. When you pull out a traditional astrological chart, and then you see all these things going on. If you are to see something going from where are my trines? Yeah, my trines are here. So if you are to see anything that goes 4 houses apart, you're going to get an extremely harmonious relationship. So let's start to do that from here. This is the sign of Scorpio, right? We've got Scorpio here. Okay, so we've got Scorpio here. Let's jump 4. 1, going to Libra. 2, going to Virgo. 3, going to Leo. 4, coming to Cancer. That's 4 houses. 30 into 4 is 120 degrees. Now, any planet which is placed in Cancer, and here I have my Mars out here, and any planet which is placed in Scorpio, which I've got my Pluto out here, when they communicate with each other, it's absolutely smooth. Now, the degrees need to be taken into consideration, but here they're well within reach. This is at 27, that's at 23. They're both close by. I'll get into those at a future video because I don't want to complicate it in the beginning. So When you see something 120 degrees apart, or what you would call as four houses, or in music you would call as four notes apart, you're generally going to get a very harmonious sound, or you're going to get a frequency which is going to vibrate in a way that the energies are extremely harmonious, or that they ring together in a way that they recognize each other quite easily astrologically, is because that their element is the same. Here Cancer and Scorpio, four houses apart, have the same energy, that they have both water signs, they have the same element. And hence, when I have this aspect between Pluto and Mars, it flows absolutely harmoniously. That's why you've got this blue line going. Now, generally in astrological charts, your blue lines are the most harmonious aspects. So if you are to see one, that's generally where your energies are going very, very, very freely. Now, if you are to interpret this, once I have explained you with music that when you play a major third, or when you go from C to E out here in our musical chart, circle of fifths, when you go from C to E, you're going to get an extremely harmonious tone. It's going to be the same when you look at it in our astrological context, that when you go from Mars to Pluto, and if you had seen yesterday's episode where I spoke about how I surrendered my Mars strategically in a way that it led to Pluto, that it sucked in very, very, very easily. It got sucked into Pluto's gravity very easily. The main thing which I was denoting to, or the main reason which I did that or thought that as a worthwhile strategy to deal with the complex structure inside my chart, or in any chart for that matter, was because Mars and Pluto here were 120 degrees apart. They were in the same element, they were connected easily, they were flowing through water, which meant they could merge into each other very smoothly. And they were in houses which was hidden from the social eye as well, which is the 8th and the 12th. So, when you want to interpret something like that, it could say that your willpower and your deep roots inside your soul, your subconscious, your emotional uh, undercurrents are extremely connected. So, what you feel inside is what you will. By will, I mean what you want as well. And your ego is as well your ego of doing, not your ego of being, because that has more to do with the sun. Your ego of action, the ego accumulation that comes from action, from taking action, from a succession of actions, and a memory of knowing that I or any entity has done A, B, C, D, E in succession. And the experience that comes from doing that, either successfully or unsuccessfully, tends to form the ego that you have about your own Mars. And in this case, that gets very much connected to the undercurrent of your very soul in Pluto out here. So, when you are to strategize about your chart, what is harmonious and what is not harmonious becomes extremely vital in the decisions that you take, in the way that you deal with certain life situations. So, if it is something to do with your relationships or your wealth or your business or your profession, there are ways to deal with things which can relate to the intricacies of understanding frequency, and you can say music, in a way that you can work it out. You can work it out in a very harmonious fashion. Now, this was the major third. Now let me show you just one more thing. We'll go this very slowly because it's sometimes difficult for people who are new to both fields. Right? You could be new to music and astrology, or new to one of them. So I like to go quite slowly. I apologize if it's really slow. But yeah, now let me talk about this other aspect that we have out here. I'll first show you the chart so that we get an idea, and we'll hop right back in. So now this blue is the so-called harmonious one that we spoke about, right, in the chart. Now let's let me speak about this red thing going on, this red square going on. Yeah, it's literally called a red square. So yeah, so you got this Mars out here. Where is it? It's in Cancer, and it's relating to the moon that you have here in the sign of Aries. Okay, and they're both related to each other with a red line. Okay, let's look at it now. They're related with each other with a red line. The second thing is, how many houses are they apart? Now you've got Cancer going on to Gemini. That's the first house apart from it. Taurus, the second house apart from it. Aries, the third house apart from it. So it's 3 houses apart, this red line. Okay, the square is 3 houses apart. Now, how much is 3 houses? 30 degrees is each house, right? So it's 90 degrees apart. So the square is 90 degrees apart. So my Mars and my moon are 90 degrees apart from each other. Now let's switch on to the musical wheel out here. And when you have anything which is 90 degrees apart, now let me get this mess out here. So when you have anything which is 90 degrees apart, for example, you have out here, you've got A, yeah, when I do 90 degrees, it's 30 degrees, 30 degrees, 30 degrees. And there I come to my C out here. So if I'm playing A and then I play C, or if I play A and C together on a keyboard or on a piano, or I mean on a guitar, on just about anything, doesn't matter. What you get is the tone of A ringing out with the tone of C. That is frequency A ringing with the frequency C. Now when these two vibrate together, they give a minor third, which is a much more sadder, a much more, I wouldn't say melancholic, but much more introspective, much more sadder is actually the simplest way I can explain it. It is much more sadder than your major, which is the previous one that we spoke about. So here, what happens is that as soon as any two planets or any two nodes start to form something which is 3 nodes or 3 houses apart from each other, the mood that they share with each other because of their vibrations tends to go on a more sadder side, tends to go on a more introspective side. So the major was outgoing, was bulbous, was easy to communicate with each other and vibe together, but the minor is kind of introspective, is more difficult to handle, is creating a more sadder tone, is creating a more sadder mood. And this is what musicians generally use for more sadder songs. Now, this is extremely rudimentary music, but yes, this is the simplest way that I can explain it in the beginning. That if you want to make something sad, ideally you are told by your initial music teachers that you're supposed to use a minor third, which is exactly what this is between A and C. In the same way, when you come to astrology, now let me clear off this mess. Yeah, when you come to astrology as well, If you are to make something sad, you're going to do the same thing here as well. Now, where were we? We were in Aries and Cancer, if you remember. We had our Mars here, was in Cancer, that was the Mars, and this was the Moon. Okay, so the Moon was here. Yeah, the Moon was here, and the Mars was here. So we have Cancer and Aries. It's the same thing. 1, 2, and 3. That's 30 house. 30. Let me do it different. Yeah, I'll just make yellow or something. Yeah. 1, 2, and 3. You've got your three houses. They're three houses apart. They're 90 degrees apart, and hence, when Mars and Moon they make an aspect inside of your birth chart, when they tend to make an aspect inside of your birth chart, they work as an internal drive for you to clear out something. They work as an internal drive for you to go and do something about it. You feel it inside. When events happen outside, if it's a major third or what you would call as a trine in astrology that we saw, right, with Pluto and with Mars in Scorpio and Cancer, it was very easy to do it. While here, it's not going to be that way. Any kind of, yeah, I don't even want to say external, as you just even go through life, what happens is they tend to be at loggerheads with each other. Now, if you're aware of a little bit of geometry, a tangent is something which instigates, it's a point of instigation onto a body. So this works very much like a tangent because it's all 90 degrees apart from each other. They're all 90 degrees apart from each other. And 90 degrees means it's making you take an action to resolve the sadness in your life, in that element, in that house, in that sphere of life. It's instigating you to go ahead and do something about it. Now, this is what in astrology is called as squares. So, squares are generally something that astrologers generally will scare you with and tell you it is bad. It is true, but also, if you are to understand it and understand bigger formations that these squares are leading to, you'd be able to solve these in with less stress, I would say, and in a much more easier way. So, if you are to understand this energy, and this is how I went about it and personally solving things which were bothering me in my life. Now, when I went about solving my Mars in Cancer and my Moon in Aries, I looked at it as they're both instigating each other. Now, when Moon comes to Aries, that means your emotional drive is being generated from, you would say, warlike situations or sports like situations, because sports again is some form of physical instigation. You're instigating yourself to go and play that game. Nobody's asked you to do it, but you want to do it. Okay, it's, yeah, while in war you are asked to kind of do it, but still it's an instigatory situation. So Moon in Aries gets stimulated by someone who instigates them. Now, my Moon in Aries also, you need to see the house. It's in the house, it's in the fourth house. So that means my mother is someone who's instigating me all the time to go ahead and do it. And when she doesn't do that, I don't feel as if I'm being nurtured. When someone tells me to go out and do something, when someone instigates me, when someone is rough, like as a parental figure, it relates back to this nurturing feeling inside of me. I feel nurtured when I feel that my goals, which are internal, and if I'm not doing them, somebody's instigating me to go ahead and do it, I feel as if that's a motherly quality in someone. I don't see it as being pushy. And why is that so? Because my Mars is, sorry, my Moon is in Aries in the fourth house of nurturing. And what happens is that Mars goes into Cancer in the eighth house. of crisis. So, going ahead and showcasing these qualities of taking action, being stimulative in areas of crisis, in areas where, in the eighth house, you can also say where other people's money is locked up or resources are locked up. Maybe someone's stuck up in, you can say, an extremely bad loan situation where someone's got stuck up with taxes. It's also a great example to give for firefighters because someone is stuck up inside maybe a burning building, the building being a communal property, and this person is alone stuck up in a communal property without ability to escape at that time. So somebody like this could, I'm not a firefighter, I'm a musician, but I'm saying it could very much be somebody doing a role like that. Like firefighters could possibly have it because they are very instigative in a situation where it involves somebody else being stuck in a communal, uh, yeah, trouble, communal trouble, where they're inside. It could be the same with even taxes. You can easily look at this as some expert lawyer who's able to get you out of impossible tax situations you've got yourself into. It could also be, yes, as I said, the firefighter. It could also be someone who could actually get you out of something to do with inheritance, something to do with joint property, something to do, even divorce lawyers might have this, like, people who have got into really stuck up marriages and when they cannot separate and there's too much property and too much assets involved, the person who's able to get them out of that generally has something like this going on, that they feel stimulated, they get instigated by that. Anyways, long story short, what I wanted to say is that such understanding of music and astrology lets you see your own chart in excruciating detail, lets you see things which otherwise are seen with a hint of fear, with a hint of, it's actually a astrologer's chart as well, you can say, because what is astrology if not entering into a realm where people are stuck in their lives and you go there and you, I wouldn't say help them, let them see that they're actually not stuck. They're just clouded. And that clarity brings direction in their lives. And you feel nurtured by the action that you just took to go and help someone become unstuck. I think that's how I feel about doing astrology. So yeah, with the deep understanding of music and astrology, you're going to be able to see it in an extremely geometric, logical, and right brain way while making sense of it esoterically, spiritually, and emotionally. Because what happens generally is that people, when they go to astrologers, they're using the esoteric part of their being, they're using the emotional part of their being, and they're generally stimulated by what is being told, because something is being told about you. When something is being told about you, it's generally prophecy, and prophecy generally happens in the esoteric realm. It happens in a realm where you do not see patterns, and the right brain really wants to see patterns, the mind wants to understand, and generally, since it's clouded, you get scared. So my idea of this thing which I'm doing is to maybe uncloud you, help you uncloud in a way that I present you with another geometry, that is music, which is very easily realizable. Because if you go down after this video, go on and play a C and then play an E, you will see how happy it sounds. You go on and play an A and then you play a C, you will see how sad it sounds. You've got physical proof right in front of you, and you're able to discern it because the frequencies are separated from each other in that degree. So if you can use a supporting science to help you see esoteric knowledge, the level of spiritual growth that you would have would be extremely fast tracked, extremely fast tracked is the word, because both parts of your brain are working together to solve problems. Is generally feedback from astrologers is used in a very emotional or spiritual way. It's not used generally into a way of understanding and practicality. While practical solutions are generally seen as lacking emotion or lacking profundity. In these ways in which you can meet these two geometries, you can work them in a very funny way where they work together in harmony. So I'm going to be going in much more detail. Today was just an intro into the demonstration of how these two things work together. I'm going to go into much more detail. And, I'll be doing my chart as an example till the time you guys don't put up yours. And when one of you puts up your charts, I'll be more than happy to demonstrate and take it ahead. So that's about it for today's episode. And I will catch you soon. And if you want to book a call with me, you can do it so on my website, which is listed below. I am a musician, I'm a music composer, and I work in the high ticket sales industry, which helps me support my long term musical visions and building it in a harmonious way. So, this high ticket sales offer that I work with, when people come on board and book a call with me, I also offer them personalized astrological consultation so that they can take the best approach to the business they're entering into, so that they can take a very unique uh, standpoint on how they want to enter in. Because there's so much business coaching nowadays, which is so generic that it doesn't apply to everybody. Because all of us are different, all of us have different problems, all of us are stimulated by different things, all of us are motivated by different things, all of us have different responsibilities. So when I'm able to see your chart, I'm able to not talk to you about all the things that don't even matter to you. I'm able to only talk to you about the things that matter and the way in which you would like to change your life moving forward, mixing spirituality with the realm of your finances and going ahead and creating the life that you are truly here to build. So if you are one of those people, you can book a call. Everything's there on my website. And you can check out my music as well, if that's what you fancy. So I'll see you on the other side in a video very soon. Till then, bye.